What interview questions will I be asked? Now, this is a question that anyone who has or intends to climb the career ladder would have to ask themselves in some capacity. And contrary to popular beliefs, job interview questions are highly predictable and they actually follow certain principles and certain patterns, regardless of the job role you're applying for and regardless of the industry or the field the job resides in. And I'll share those with you in this video. And I'll even do you one better. I would share some principles on how to approach answering these questions. I'm Dr. Esther Amaefuleesther, and today I want to teach you a fail-proof approach to predicting job interview questions. So first things first, traditionally, job interview questions fall into two broad categories. So you've got your motivational questions and then you've got your competency-based questions. And then your competency-based questions are further subdivided into two groups. So you've got your, let's say, personality questions, for lack of a better word, and your sort of situational judgment questions. So motivational questions are things like, why do you think you're the best person for this job? Why have you chosen to apply to this specific organization? And then competency-based questions are on the other end, really test the extent of your mastery for the sort of technical and non-technical skills that are pertinent to your role. And then you've got your personality questions, which are things like, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, tell me about yourself. And then lastly, your situational judgment questions are questions that sort of test your reasoning behind your choice of actions in a hypothetical situation. But actually these days they are hardly hypothetical. These are situations that your future colleagues have encountered, you are bound to encounter if you get the job. In preparing for a job interview, I wouldn't really bother myself with, what kind of questions would I be asked? But I'll really concern myself with understanding 4 concepts I'm about to share in this video. Now, the questions you'll be asked would hardly fall beyond the boundaries of those 4 concepts. And if you can understand these concepts, you will be armed with all the information you need to answer whatever type of question is thrown at you. So I will pay quite careful attention to the next few things I will be saying. Concept number 1 is the organization. When I say the organization, I mean the company, obviously, but more importantly is the department and the portfolio team within which the role or the post will reside. Now, with regards to the organization, the knowledge you should garner and the understanding you should aim to attain is this. Who are they? What league in the industry space do they operate in? What do they actually do? So what's their modus operandi and what does that involve? What are their values? What is their mission? What are their missions? What principles do they operate by? And there's a range of sources where you can get this information. So one, you have the About Us section of the job description, which is kind of the first quarter of the page, but you also have the organizational website where you can harness this information. But then if you want sort of real-time information on where and what the team does, you might have to look up for published reports or published articles, which again you can find on their website, or go take a look at their LinkedIn feed for sort of accomplishments and their achievements. Now, if you want even more specific contextual information with regards to what products do they curate, what services do they deliver, who are their clients, who are their service users, who are their partners, what specifications, what methodologies do they deliver the services by, you might have to work a little bit hard, but this is not outside of your reach. So try and secure a one-to-one with a member of that team or that department of choice and see if they can give you access to contextual information or even reports that one would not have access to unless you are internal. And those are the kind of things, details that would set you apart from the flock when you are responding to a job interview question. Now, the second type of information I recommend that you collate with regards to the organization is what are their current challenges and what are their strategic priorities. Now, every couple of years, organizations would usually draft and publish an action plan or a strategy that depicts their priorities and their areas of focus in the next couple of years. And these focus areas are usually, based on identified needs, but they also go a step further, describing some of the actions you're going to take to actualize these priorities. Now, this is a document I'll highly recommend that you familiarize yourself with if you intend to understand the organization, what they stand for, and what their focus is forward looking. Now, the last piece of information with regards to the organization is what are the ongoing changes or what are the predicted changes to that industry space. Now, the strategy document that I mentioned will be a good place to get answers to that question, but also I'm just staying abreast with like industry news, keeps you informed about trends in that space. So things like newsletters, LinkedIn feeds of key system players in your area is just a good way to stay abreast. If you gather knowledge and attain a really good understanding regarding these 3 questions that I've just posed, no matter how a question about the organization is posed, you would have more than enough to provide a suitable answer. But there's a caveat though, how well of an answer you've prepared and how excellent your communication of that answer is more of a determinant factor of how high you will score compared to your counterpart applicants. And that's something that I'll do with another video. But I mean, being able to have, answers that are suited to quite a range of possible questions gets you one step closer. So the first concept we spoke about is the organization. And concept number 2 is the responsibilities of the role. Most people make this unintentional mistake of just rushing straight to the person specification of a job description. But if you ask me, the hidden gems, and if you're Nigerian, the expo, is in the roles and responsibilities section. Now, I find that the person specification is most time a summarized or a watered down version of the role description and does not host some of those details that gives you frontline access to, the everyday realities of the role, which in turns makes for a solid response when you're preparing answers to job questions. So read the JD in total. Don't just read the person specification, also read the roles and responsibilities section, and not just read, right? So read to truly grasp and comprehend the ask of the role. And that adage, the most patient dog eats the fattest bone, and the same applies here. The patience and the attentiveness you exert to understand the themes and the nuances of what is required in that role determines how much real-time and real-life experiences you are bound to infuse into your answers, which is what separates the wheat from the tares in job interviews. So concept number 3 is the knowledge and experience required for the role. In some cases, the required knowledge and experience is usually implicit within the roles and responsibilities section of the JD, but you do come across some JDs where those 2 sections are, kept apart. And if that's the case, you'll find that the section titled knowledge and experience is always, again, a summarized version of the roles and responsibilities. So I would use that section as a checklist, to check that I truly understand and I fully have a grasp of what the ask is. Now, with regards to the type of information you need to gather to enable you predict without fail a range of job interview question is you need to gather information regarding the organization, as we've spoken about. You need to gather information regarding the responsibilities of the role. And then thirdly is the knowledge and experience required for the role. Now, the 4th concept is the skills required for the role, or what I would call the person specification. Now, the skills or the person specification can be a combination of both technical and non-technical skills that are required for the role, or can also include things like academic qualifications or specific trainings or certifications that you should possess. Now, as with the earlier section with the knowledge and experience, the skills are also implicit in the roles and responsibilities section. It makes sense, right? Because performing the duty of that role require a specific pool of knowledge, of experience, and of skill set. And again, that can serve as a checklist to see, do I really understand what this role is about? But actually, there's a unique value that this person specification section provide, which is certain terminologies or armory that you can name drop, during your interview responses, or even when you're writing your CV, or you're writing your cover letter, or your supporting statement, or even when you're drafting answers to competency questions, as some applications do ask you to do. So the skills section is good because you have specific terms that you can use, you can infuse into your answers, be it interviews or be it in the application stage. Now, if you're able to garner themes of information regarding the first concept, the organization, and the sort of specific details that we spoke about, or regarding the roles and responsibilities, or regarding the knowledge and experience required for the role, or regarding the person's specification or the skills. If you're able to garner or summarize themes of information around these 4 concepts, whatever question you posed in an interview, you would have adequate information to pose an answer. Now, how well of an answer you prepare and how well you present the answer is a different story, and is also another determining factor. But you would have enough information for you to provide an answer that would make a lasting impression. However, frankly, I must acknowledge that preparing answers and specific examples within that to a range of possible questions can be cumbersome. And even if you successfully do so, remembering the answers and the example to the extent of nuance that is required to set you apart from equally highly skilled, highly trained, highly satisfied individuals can be crippling. So this is where I introduce you to a friend that specializes in specificity with 100% positive predictive value that can tell you exactly what's in the mind of the interviewers and the exact questions they will ask to the letter. So I go to this friend of mine all the time for advice, even in my personal career progression. I do consult him always in my coaching practice, and he has always been spot on. And I have a living, genuine, real life, real-time evidence of his help. Now, that friend is called the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit is an invisible companion, but with very, very real, tangible expressions. The Bible calls him a counselor and says he's omniscient, which means he knows all things and can tell you with accuracy and with precision what to do in every single situation, and he does not fail. Now, he tells you what is to come, things like job interview questions to expect and the answers to formulate for those. He reminds you of things that you forget and even teaches you what you do not know. Now, him in partnership with the diligence of thoroughly investigating this concept that we've spoken about, you will be able to predict job interview questions without fail. Now, if you want to get to know him, and I really, really wish that you do, pray this prayer on the screen, grab yourself a Bible, or better still, download the Bible from a Bible app on Play Store or Apple Store. Find yourself a Bible-believing church, and I'll put some recommendations on the screen and in the description box. And I can't wait for you to experience the joy of knowing him and to partake in these pleasures that I do on a daily basis. Until next time, I'm Dr. Chiamaka Esther Amaefule.